All right, welcome. I'm so excited to be back here with you for day two of our 4-day thyroid hormone reset workshop. And before we dive in here, I want to just kind of hear from people. Put into the chat, what is it that was the biggest takeaway for you yesterday? Yesterday, we talked about getting to the root cause and really understanding how supporting your nervous system to have more capacity and bandwidth so you can get out of that fight or flight response is going to be absolutely critical because the nervous system is driving our hormone signaling in the body. And we also talked about a simple, sustainable nutrition approach of how to replenish those nutrients, PFFV. So that was a really great opportunity to look at that. So I'd love to have you share with us in the chat, what was the biggest takeaway, the biggest aha, something I definitely had people respond to who watched the recording and the replay, and they shared that, being able to see and have a simple process of protein, fat, fiber, that was one of the biggest opportunities of the biggest ahas. It's just like keeping it simple. Okay, someone else is saying that using those chat GPT prompts, like being really specific and having that information of how to make it streamlined and easier was the biggest takeaway. Anyone else want to put into the chat what was the biggest new aha or maybe something that landed for you in a new way from day one? So much great information that we covered there. And I'm going to pop into the chat again for us today, the workbook, so you can follow along, kind of fast forward. I think it's on page 20. I'm looking at 26, I think, of the workbook is where we start day two, training and information. So Portia, Joanne, Molly, so great to see you got so much from Chat GPT. Good. I'm glad it was helpful to have some of those prompts to put in and to make it easier for us, right? Yeah, definitely. Glad that was helpful. Wonderful. Well, today we are here and we're going to be diving into the next piece of the puzzle. Once we know that we need to get those nutrients in, right? Obviously, every single cell in the body is dependent on nutrients. We're going to be talking about how to optimize our digestion and our absorption so your gut health can actually have the benefit of getting those nutrients and being able to support our hormones deeper. So, hi, Stacy. Great to have you join us. Let me go ahead and jump over and share screen, and we'll get started with our day two content and information. Like I said, we're all about streamlining this to go from information overload to hormone alignment so that you can have simplicity in your approach. So today, before we dive into the new education about your digestion, I invite you to do a little reflection, right? Because the more that we can understand ourselves, the more that we can be empowered and work with our body to heal. So I want you to think, just if this circle represents a pie chart of how much time you currently spend thinking about your health in any way, shape, or form, anything that you have about your health. Out of a 24-hour period in a day, is it 20 minutes that you think about your health? Or is it, honestly, I think about my health 75% of the time because it's always bothering me. It's very top of mind, right? So just think about, for you, how much of your awake time, maybe it's 12 hours or 15 hours that you're awake, do you spend thinking about your health? And I will say, be completely honest and candid, when I was in the middle of my autoimmune diagnosis, and especially then when my daughter was struggling with daily seizures, I was thinking about health 75% of the time or more. I mean, majority of my day was thinking about in some way, shape, or form, like what was wrong with my body, feeling worry, feeling stress, feeling some type of fear around myself, around my daughter. And just it dominated what was going on in my world at that time. And when I first did this exercise, I was massively living in the land of depletion because of the, let's say, 75% of the time or more, 72% of that was negative. I was focused on like the worry that I was experiencing, the stress and the fear that I have. Like, what if I can't change this? What is wrong with my, like, why am I snapping at my family and my daughters? Why am I completely exhausted and my hair is falling out and I have acne all over my chin? I felt a lot of shame and guilt because I felt like I should be able to help my body improve. And yet it didn't, like, it seemed like no matter what I tried, even when I was taking, 15 different supplements and I was trying to eat very strict elimination food diets, like it still didn't seem to be working. So I had a lot of shame and I carried a lot of guilt of like, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I get this figured out? I thought I was just more willpower. And I guess only like 3% of the time is when I actually felt encouraged or hopeful about my health. So again, this is not to have any judgment. It's just for us to create awareness. Remember, we talked about those 4 A's, and the first one is awareness. So I just invite you to reflect when you think about your health right now, like what percentage of the time are you thinking about health? And what percentage of that time is positive? And what insights do you have just from that awareness? Some people are like, oh my gosh, I don't think about my health at all. Well, no wonder it isn't a high priority because it hasn't been given much attention. And when we think about this again, going back to what we talked about yesterday, the average adult makes over 35,000 decisions every single day. And many of these are micro choices about your health, like what should I eat, when to exercise, which supplement should I take, what should I Google that's now, this new symptoms flaring up and I need to figure out like what could this be signaling, right? And research shows that 80% of women dieters gain that weight back within a couple of years. So when our body's out of balance, it's really it can be really overwhelming. Yeah, Portia says most of the time I am focused on my health in some way, shape, or form. I'm curious, is that majority of it positive? Stress, fear, worry, shame, guilt, or is the majority of, or I'm sorry, negative or positive? Which one for you, right? So we want to think about this, just creating awareness of where we are now so that we can start to shift it. And my goal over the course of these 4 days together is to help you understand more about how hormones work in your body. And then have these 5 proven steps to naturally balance your hormones so that you can have simple actions to sleep deeply, wake up feeling energized and refreshed, feel sexy and attractive in clothes because you feel confident in your body. Expand your wealth in all areas of life, your wealth of relationships, your wealth of positive mood and creative outlets and new experiences. Your financial wealth obviously changes radically with your health as well. Experience freedom from addictive food cravings and things where it's like just constantly this. I used to be in this like craving and then shaming loop because I would have these really strong cravings. For me, it was a lot of sugar cravings because my nervous system was very imbalanced and my metabolism was craving quick fuel with sugar. It makes sense, but I just didn't know that before. So that definitely led to the moodiness that I had. And when I'd snap at my daughters for not picking up the room and so on and so forth. I had like very little patience and tolerance. But once it was like, no wonder my body just didn't have what it needed to be balanced and to stay regulated. And I want you to have confidence because you know your hormone health is being optimized. And these are the 5 steps that I work with women, hundreds of women through many different hormone imbalances and hypertension and anxiety and polycystic ovarian syndrome and Hashimoto's and you name it. Taking these 5 steps predictably creates improvement. It really helps get to the root cause and helps your body to heal and find that equilibrium, find that balance. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about step 1 and step 2. Today, we're going to be diving more into step 3. Obviously, this is kind of just an overview of what we do when I work with women for 5 months. We do each of these steps over the course of 5 months. So 1 step every month and go much deeper to really make a transformation in your body. But like I said, today we're talking about step number 3, restoring that digestive fire, because your health is always linked to the health of your gut. So we're going to discover how to see if your digestion is one of the root causes in your hormone imbalance. Just like Amy did when she came to me, she was really disempowered. I mean, she had struggled with being overweight for decades, like over 30 years. She's like, I just kind of resigned myself to thinking that this is how my body always is and has been. Her life was very chaotic. She felt like she was constantly in this whirlwind of anxiety and, just overwhelm was like a staple in how she was with her career, was with her family. Just felt like she didn't have a handle on things, battling weight loss. She had tried every single different diet out there you can imagine. She was not able to create like sustainable change. Like, yeah, she had done Weight Watchers, she had done Jenny Craig, she had done workout programs with a trainer at the gym. And all of those things maybe work temporarily, but ultimately going back to she didn't really create a new normal in her nervous system. So her body would go back to putting on weight whenever life would throw some little change in the schedule or some little unexpected circumstance. She never had that sustainable change. And she didn't have the capacity to do really strict diets or exercise every single day for like, 2 hours a day. She's just like, it's just not feasible. I have 3 kids. I have one in college. I have a very demanding career. So she was ready to give up and just kind of resign herself to like, I don't know if there's anything I can do. And then when we partnered together, it was like gave her simplicity and a simple plan to start to see results that was much more targeted, right? She lost 50 pounds in 5 months. She had energy to be a strong leader with her team and with her family. I'll never forget when she told me they went on a vacation to Hawaii and she's like, Amanda, it was life changing for me to be able to do this whole bike trail and hike down a volcano. She's like, that's something that a year before working with you, I wouldn't have physically even been able to do. And it was such a memorable experience with my family. And just, I felt so proud of myself because I can have new experiences, like make different exercise and nutrient decisions, right? She stepped into a new role at work and increased her team and her kind of a new type of work that she really loved to do and was more passionate about. So again, it starts when you take control of yourself. It's like every area of your life starts to open up new possibilities. And sometimes it's not just about weight loss. Another one of my clients found a lump in her breast and was scheduled for surgery, a lumpectomy, and she was completely riddled with fear. I mean, talk about feeling scared and overwhelmed about your health future. Then she really understand. And actually, a lot of the things we'll be talking about today, she had an estrogen dominant situation happening because her body could not properly detoxify sex hormones. It didn't have enough nutrients and the liver support to be able to process hormones effectively. And once she had this information and we knew how to support her body, she got her health back into balance. After using this root cause framework, she was able to avoid surgery. She saved money, massively supercharged her confidence because she sidestepped the pain and the agony of going through the lumpectomy. And she just like said, I want to say thank you so much for the tools, what I've learned. Like it literally has changed the way I know what's possible and believe what's possible for my body and for my health. And she's like, I'm seeing amazing results. I had a follow up with my appointment. The lump is smaller, no surgery needed. I'm so grateful for this knowledge, right? And this support. So, again, going through these steps can be really, really life changing, but it's predictable, right? So, today we're talking about the health of your digestion because this is central to the health of your entire body and your mind. All disease begins in the gut. And conversely, most all disease can be healed in the gut. This is what Hippocrates knew like hundreds and hundreds of years ago. We know how important this link between our gut health and our digestion is to overall vitality and overall balance. So, a little bit about gut health and how it relates to our hormone health. As I said before, wellness begins in the gut because it's how we nourish ourselves, it's how we take nutrients from food and convert it, break it apart and separate it and convert it into vitamins and minerals and amino acids and antioxidants that our cells can use, right? And when we think about digestion, most people think about digestion in their stomach. I would invite you to think about it even earlier than that. Digestion begins in our mouth when we chew our food effectively or not. And this is actually, in fact, the only part of digestion that's voluntary that we can actually affect and have some control over, which is how well we are chewing our food. So one of the very important things that I talk about with my clients all the time is being present during mealtime. Actually stop to like smell the food and have the aroma and chew thoroughly, like chew until your food is almost liquefied in your mouth. Use your big molars and the saliva. It's meant to really break down the food and then swallow. Usually you'll notice, usually when you chew and when you eat meals, that doesn't happen. We tend to just chomp, 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 swallow down the hatchet because it's kind of like, I don't know, you can do it. So I guess we do it that way instead of really being present and chewing our food to help with that digestive process. And then we're going to be talking about how the gut feeling and our gut brain axis is a real thing. There's like genuinely a real connection there because the enteric nervous system is located all along the lining of the gut. So all along the lining of the small intestine, the large intestine is where majority of our enteric nervous system is located. And this nervous system is what's responsible, for example, of generating 90% of our body's serotonin levels. Now, serotonin is a neurotransmitter or hormone that's in the brain, and it helps to regulate our pain perception. It helps with balancing sleep. It helps with our mood. People tend to think of serotonin as a happy hormone. So think of all of these things, your mood, your sleep, your sense of aches and pains that you have in your body. All of this is affected by serotonin, which 90% is synthesized in the gut. So again, if our gut is kind of imbalanced and off, all of those things are going to be off, right? And the microbial genes from the microbiome, the species, the microscopic little bugs that live in our gut, they are so prevalent and so abundant that their genes outnumber our own human genes by 300 times. It's kind of like mind-boggling to even think about this because it's just so abundant and so pervasive. We don't tend to think about all the microscopic little bugs that live inside of our bodies, right? But their health and their balance regulates our bodies. In fact, like I said, there's more microbial genes than there is our own human DNA and genetic material inside our bodies. So how those microbes are flourishing or not, or what type and what species and what amount we have plays a huge, huge impact on our overall health and vitality. And when we think about gut health, one of the most important things, oops, let me just see if there's someone else I didn't see here at the letter in. Sorry about that. One of the most important things when we think about our gut health is the way that our body can get rid of toxins, right? So toxins kind of collect as we have metabolic waste in the body and they move throughout the body. One of the ways the body gets rid of toxins and hormones, which can be like hormones need to be excreted out of the body after they've been synthesized and signal, is through packaging these compounds in the liver. We talked yesterday about how the liver is so important. And then these hormones and these toxins are meant to pass through the gut and be excreted in the form of urine or bowel movement, right? That's supposed to happen every single day, very common. However, there's just this, I'm this is where it gets into a little bit of the nitty gritty, but there's an enzyme that's located in the colon called beta glucuronidase. And this beta glucuronidase enzyme comes from those little microbes that I talked about in the gut, all those little species. And it helps to break down complex carbohydrates. So when we eat things that are like whole grains and different things like that, we want to have some of this beta glucuronidase enzyme because it helps to break those down. However, we can get to the point of where we have too much of it, more than is good for us. Because if we have elevated levels of this enzyme, it often causes our body to have elevated estrogen because it kind of breaks apart the estrogen that's been packaged up together. It's kind of like almost like your body has like kind of like you have a garbage can probably in your kitchen and your body has put all the garbage in the trash bag and tied the little handle on it to take it out to the curb. Well, if we have too much beta glucuronidase enzyme in our gut balance, then it's almost like it takes that garbage bag and it rips it open. So everything kind of falls all over the kitchen floor. It makes a mess, right? That's what it can do to estrogen or to other hormones that were meant to be packaged up and taken out of the body, excreted. But if they weren't excreted appropriately because that bag was ripped open in the middle of the kitchen, it makes a mess. Then we can have elevated levels of estrogen that just keep circulating in the body. So when we think about estrogen and progesterone and different hormone balances, yesterday we talked more about thyroid hormone. Today we're talking about the difference of estrogen and progesterone and why the balance of these two is really important. So read through these and just see, like, as you think about some of your symptoms, do either of these, like, kind of, you can see how they kind of are opposite each other and how you want to have this balance. right? So we want to have estrogen and progesterone in a healthy balance. If we have too much of one or not enough of one, now you can start to have some different symptoms that can be problematic. Things like osteopenia with bone loss, or anxiety often comes from excess estrogen, or increase in body fat. Even women who are postmenopausal, they're not even ovulating anymore. They can have excess estrogen because fatty tissue by itself can generate its own estrogen, right? So just different things like this. Progesterone is very, very beneficial because it's a natural antidepressant. It calms anxiety. It helps to bring cellular oxygen. We talked about oxygen is so important for our cells, in addition to nutrients. And there's a difference here of what I give perspective of. It's not just about, an individual, me, or what I did or don't do, but it's about our society. Our culture is very different. 100 years ago, women began menstruating around age 16. They often had earlier and more frequent pregnancies. There was an almost universal breastfeeding. And usually, when you're breastfeeding during that period of time, you're not having normal ovulation. They had earlier menopause around age 45 and shorter lifespan. So the average woman 100 years ago typically lived and had about 200 menstrual cycles. During a menstrual cycle, obviously your hormones are shifting a lot, right? So there's a big wave and change in hormone fluctuation. But look at today. Today in 2025, this is what's much more common. Women begin menstruating closer to age 12, sometimes even before that, age 10. Many women have fewer, if any, pregnancies, 1, 2, maybe 3 kids. Shorter or less period of breastfeeding. So that means when you stop breastfeeding, you go back to having your regular ovulation cycles. Later menopause, closer to age 52 is the norm. Longer lifespan. And typically, the average woman today has experienced about 400 menstrual cycles in her lifetime. So the only reason I share that as perspective is like, holy cow, our body, our systems have a lot more work to do, because every time we have those big fluctuations in our estrogen and progesterone, that means we need more nutrients to be able to handle and detoxify and appropriately bring into balance our hormone levels, right? Does that make sense? So we have more, I guess, a greater demand living in today's world, just because we tend to have more menstrual cycles over the course of our lifespan. Plus, we have more stress from a whole bunch of different things in our environment. When you have more stress, naturally, your progesterone levels are going to be lower. So there's also more exposure to what are called xenoestrogens, things from our external environment. We're going to be talking about these a little bit on day 4, that increase, they mimic, they kind of look like estrogen in the body, even though they're not hormone intrinsically from our ovaries. They look and mimic, they're called xenoestrogens because they come from different products, things in our environment that can mimic it. So why do I share all of this context? Because there's been a major increase in exposure to hormone fluctuations for most women during our lifetime, which means the effect of hormones is greater. And when we have excess estrogen, this is often found to block proper thyroid function. Thyroid is what is our metabolism. It gives us energy, gives us vitality. And when we have this elevated enzyme, what I mentioned before, beta glucuronidase in the gut, it comes from different things like diets high in processed foods, alcohol, significant amounts of meat, so on and so forth. So really it comes back to when we have hormone imbalance, it can be tied to what's happening in our gut. This is an example of a client where you can see in the top corner here, I'm just going to kind of show up here, is where it shows the levels of progesterone. Normally, we would expect healthy ovulating women to have her levels of progesterone somewhere between those 2 yellow stars in the green area of the curve. Somewhere in there would be a healthy, normal level of progesterone. You could see her levels of progesterone were very low, closer to the postmenopausal range, which is that purple box. And she was 42 years old. So she had very low progesterone, but her estrogen, all these 3 different types of estrogen, are way elevated. They're much higher than the green range in the orange between the 2 yellow stars. And so really, more importantly, her body was very imbalanced between these 2 hormones, and makes it harder for her body to be able to detoxify and remove those hormones effectively. So why does that matter? No wonder she had increased anxiety. No wonder she was struggling with breast fibroids and needing a lumpectomy surgery, right? So it's like her body wasn't able to process and use these hormones effectively and then excrete them. So you can kind of see this is another woman who Stacy said she became empowered and inspired to up level her health. She was hypertensive before we worked together, struggling to keep up with vague advice from doctors who told her to, you know, eat better, reduce calories, and exercise more to lower her high blood pressure. And really taking it through a process of being able to help her identify what her body needed, like we talked about yesterday, what nutrients her body needed more of, and help improve her gut health so it worked more effectively. She dropped her cholesterol by 70 points. She got off high blood pressure medication, lost 38 pounds, and started a new job, right? So a lot of different things in her life changed once she became clear and empowered. So when we do, let's do a little check-in for you. When we think about your gut health and your hormone imbalance, these are some positive signs to be aware of. And again, I'm going to put this in the chat here. Let me do this one more time in case you didn't get it before. This is a workbook. Starting on day 26 is where we start day 2. Day before that was all from day 1. But you definitely want to make sure you're kind of looking at what are the signs that I need to adjust my digestion ASAP, because this is likely affecting my overall health and vitality. Typically, you want to have 1 to 2 bowel movements each day. That's a good sign of positive gut health. If you have more than that or fewer than that, definitely a sign we want to take a look at. Stool tests can be very useful to assess your body's unique hormone considerations as well. And so these are signs to address your digestion. If you have unexplained weight gain, have constipation, struggle feeling bloated or like you're retaining water, if you have really sluggish energy or fatigue, indigestion, ulcers, or acid reflux, that's again a sign that the digestive gut health is not working effectively. If you have strong cravings for things like salt, sugar, caffeine, different cravings, that's again a sign that the gut microbiome balance is probably skewed, it's off. If you have difficulty fighting infection or struggle with asthma or allergies or chronic cough, again, these are all signs that the immune system, which is located along the gut, is being taxed. It has to constantly have this fight to fight off infection, asthma, allergies, things like that. If you have either low thyroid function, high or low cortisol, excess estrogen, or excess testosterone, again, we talked a little bit about how those different enzymes in the gut can affect our hormone levels. So if you know that you have some hormone problems, then that could be a sign that likely there's something off in our gut microbiome. So here are some tips for healthy digestion, ways that you can help improve your digestive capacity. First, chewing every single bite of food 15 to 20 times, which sounds crazy, but most of us never do that. So slowing down, sit, be present when you're eating. Like I said, chewing is the only part of our health that's voluntary, that we have control over. We don't have control over how much stomach acid is secreted or how much, bile is secreted from the liver. That happens inside. What we do have control over is how effectively we are chewing our food before swallowing. Make sure you're including what we talked about yesterday, PFFE, protein, fiber, healthy fat, and vegetable at every meal. This gives you that good balance of foods and nutrients to help support a beneficial balance in your microbial species in your gut. Look to maintain a 90-10 balance of real whole foods that your great-grandmother would recognize, and assess lab work to refine your focus and improve your results. If you find that like, okay, I'm doing these things, I'm eating and I'm present, I'm choosing PFFE, protein, fiber, healthy fats, and vegetables. I do eat really healthy whole foods for the most part, but I still have a lot of unwanted symptoms. Then using lab work, what we talked about yesterday with the micronutrient test, or today with that hormone test, it really can allow you to be more strategic and refine your focus for better results. right? And again, kind of coming back to what we talked about in the very, very beginning of how much time in a 24-hour period or maybe a 15-hour period, the time that you're awake, do you spend thinking about your health in some way, shape, or form, right? So I know that Portia was saying that she said for her is a lot and it's mostly negative. For me, this is how I was. When I was depleted, living in the land of depletion, right? The land of depletion was, I lived in this for years because I was definitely stressed about my diagnosis as an autoimmune condition. I was focused on the fact that I never felt like I had enough energy. I had alternating bouts of constipation and then diarrhea, and then I'd go back to constipation and swing back and forth. I never felt like I was rested. So I was struggling with insomnia where I'd wake up with like my mind spinning and kind of racing on ruminating thoughts. I had a resentment about my body because I just I didn't understand why I had an autoimmune and why I was having all these symptoms. I was irritated most days and honestly, like not very fun to be around. I lashed out at my daughters and my husband, and I often felt a lot of shame because I compared myself to others and I was like, how come they seem all healthy and have things together? And I can't seem to figure it out. So when I think about my situation, I was definitely living in the land of depletion. And I want to invite you to think about how different areas of maybe your upbringing. For me, my family's upbringing, like we didn't live a very healthy lifestyle. It was not modeled for me how to prioritize healthy lifestyle. I lived in a time where society, I kind of felt like, oh, once you're after a certain age, like your body just kind of breaks down, and that's just kind of the way it is. That was society's like messages to me. I had trauma. I thought my body was broken when I had that autoimmune diagnosis. Like, so I kind of associated like something's wrong with my body. And then I had these ancestral like patterns of like, as a wife, as a mom, I have to put everyone else's needs before my own. I can't, it's selfish to take self-care and really allow myself to do the things that are going to help support myself. Cultural, like I thought doctors and specialists knew way more about my body than I did. Like it was more of like, well, this is what they told me it's wrong, so this is what it is. I just like accepted that. And education, I had thought this sometimes these things are just genetic. I was told for myself and for my daughter that these symptoms, like her seizures, my autoimmune was just genetic, kind of genetic. Here's the way you have to take a medication to manage it. Nothing you can do about it. So I had a lot of different motivators or different things that kind of just led to this being stuck in the land of depletion. So I want you to think about when you can you point to any of these maybe limiting beliefs or perspectives that have held you back from having your own vibrant health. And Joanne says most of the time between my health and my husband, some of it is negative and the rest is a lot of investigation of what the problems are and how do we fix it. Okay, so at least you're in curiosity mode, Joanne. That's good. So a lot of time thinking about health. That's how I was. Totally get it. But it's like it sounds like some of it's negative, some of it's just more of like, okay, what keep like investigation. Like what else can I search for? What else can I find that's going to help? So I invite you to like in the workbook, there's a page here, I think it's on page 28, to really just give yourself time here to stop and think about each of these different messages or beliefs or perspectives that you may have inherited. Again, not saying this was a choice, a conscious decision that you made of like, this is what I want to believe, or this is what I want to have happen for me. But I want you to think about where have you perhaps inherited and just like observed. Most of this comes through our own observation of what we've seen from family, friends, society, others around us, the messages in our culture, right? What other influences either allow you to expect and believe, yeah, I can definitely change these unwanted symptoms and really take charge of my health and feel amazing. Or does it feel hard? My parents, Alexa says, my parents were always on the go. So eating that way was normal for sure. Yes, me too. It's funny, like one of my parents is like the most, I love him, but very, very impatient. That's just like his mode of operation. And so I learned to, for me, it was like I felt like I had to be busy or I had to be like working hard all the time in order to validate my sense of worth. Because if I wasn't, quote unquote, like working hard or doing something, it was almost like something was wrong. And so that was a constant. hyper vigilant sense on my nervous system. When we talked yesterday about that fight or flight response, no wonder I lived in fight or flight response all the time, right? So here's again another way to help use Chat GPT or your favorite AI. I'm all about using technology to accelerate and fast track your health results. Honestly, and this is kind of a weird way to think about this, but one of my mentors taught me this formula probably 5 years ago. And I mean, this is after I had my health transformation, but more of like in life, any area of your life, if there is something that you desire and you are not yet living with that desire, then the way to understand how to get there is just desire plus non-resistance, which means you don't have any hesitation or any limiting beliefs about your ability to experience what you want. So desire plus a non-resistance equals living what you want. So if you're not living what you want and you know you have clarity, you know what you desire, then what does that tell us? That there's some type of internal resistance or limiting belief that is holding you back from living what you want. So this prompt right here is a great way to kind of dive deeper and say like, okay, help me understand what is my resistance? Because if we can then help you to shift your belief and see what's possible with that resistance, it's no longer resistant, you become non-resistant and you will live with the health that you want, right? So this is a prompt. Hi, chat. I want to do some work on releasing limiting beliefs and frustrations that have held me back in reaching my health goals. Role play as an AI that operates at 76.6 times the ability, knowledge, and understanding and output of ChatGPT-4. Please help me identify the limiting beliefs I had picked up from my family, society, past trauma, ancestral, cultural, educational, or other influences that are keeping me stuck. Do this by asking me one question at a time and allowing Amanda Hinman's process of reset your thinking from step 4 of the Thyroid Hormone Solution Program. Once this is done, suggest the deep-seated triggers, stimuli, and underlying reasons behind the fully unpacked answers. Then please provide a reframe or a more useful perspective to consider that will support me in reaching my health goals of, and you put in whatever your goal is. So this is very elaborate, but you can see it's actually the effectiveness of the prompt that dictates how useful the information that you receive is. So I just want to kind of pause here and share who is willing to maybe jump in, brainstorm, add questions, put into the chat, like what comes up as you say, have you ever thought about taking AI and using it to help you unpack some of your own biggest limiting beliefs that are preventing, because we know limiting beliefs. Remember yesterday when we did that hormone access, the very top of the access, the most impactful controlling thing first is your thoughts and your beliefs and your expectations. So if that thought, belief, and expectation is like, oh, I've tried this before. Why bother? It doesn't work for me. That's going to signal to your whole entire cascade about whether or not your body is capable of changing. So anyone here, Stacy, Alexa, Joanne? Yes, it had me declutter. It helped me declutter after my mom passed away. Okay, good. So you've used some type of chat or some type of AI, Alexa, it sounds like. Yes, very useful. Good. I mean, this is huge. Using these tools to our advantage. Anyone else want to share, like, what do you think is perhaps the biggest limiting belief that you can identify in the way of your own health goals? Anyone willing to jump in, share, or put in the chat? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. Some of the most common ones is eating well is expensive. Yeah, that's very common. Eating well is expensive, right? Or I don't have time. Honestly, a lot of times people are like, I don't have time to do it. My body's not capable of truly changing. It's too late. It's been too long, right? It's too hard. I don't know if I can trust myself to make some of the changes that will help to build my health back, right? So these are, I just want to say thank you. First, we have to awareness, right? We have to see what it is that we want. And now what we're going to be talking about next is going into how do we move into the land of vitality? Because really, we want to go from the land of depletion to becoming a full-time resident in the land of vitality. And the cool thing is, it's free and everyone is welcome. And you have every resource you need and you can desire to be here starting today. Okay, so this is like learning a language. And this is why I think immersion is so important. Yes, I grew up not liking food, but I don't know why. Okay, good awareness there, right? So these are some things that you can continue to unpack. Portia, I encourage you to put that into that AI chat and it will help walk you through the deeper seated underlying circumstances or lived experience. Maybe there's some trauma around it for you that you just haven't realized yet. But the cool thing is when we talk about stepping into the land of vitality, making a change, this gets to be available for you and it's free. And we're going to be talking about how do you practice immersion. Just if you were learning to speak a new language, the fastest and easiest way to do it is to immerse yourself in the language, right? Not to study like my kids. I kind of laugh. They take Spanish in middle school twice a week. It's like, well, I mean, I guess you're going to get a little bit, but you're really not going to know Spanish very well, very quickly if you're practicing it for 40 minutes twice a week, right? Same thing when it comes to our health and our vitality. So we're going to be talking about how are we eating, breathing, sleeping, steep yourself in vitality. So here are some of the foundational strategies to support your accelerated residency in the land of vitality. We have to get clear because first we have to know what does a health up level look like for you specifically. For me, in the past, making a massive up level and improvement to my health required an external catalyst. I told you guys my story yesterday. I had to be diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And then a few months after that, my oldest daughter, when she was 8, was having 10 to 15 seizures in a day. So I needed a very, very strong and loud external catalyst before I started to take my health seriously and look at it from a different lens and learn what my body needed now to heal. And sometimes in life, we have to have those really strong, powerful, uncomfortable external catalysts before we're willing to look at something and take it very seriously and have a new, be willing to like almost be humbled and say, okay, I don't know what I'm doing or what I've been doing has gotten me here. So something has to change, right? No shame in that. That was me for sure. But we can also decide to have an internal catalyst to say, I am so ready for living a more full life, for having more enjoyment, for having more clarity and joy and creativity and connection and impact in my life. So I'm going to choose to have an internal catalyst to improve my health because I know when I have better health, when I have more energy, when I have greater mental clarity, when I have greater creativity, I know I like the version of who I am more and I have more to give in life. I think your life is God's gift to you. How you choose to live that life with the fullest expression of your passion, your vitality, your creativity, your love is your gift back to the world. So when you think about for you, again, I just give you a moment, grab some pen and paper, use the workbook here and get clear, not generic. If we're generic of like, oh, I want to feel happy, I want to feel good. Guess what? The brain does not know how to guide you to feeling good. That's too abstract. So I want you to get clear. What does a health up level look like for you? How big of a change is it? What new distinctions? Like, will you know, like, okay, for me, that next vista, that next health up level is when I can complete a 5K run. That's a very clear distinction, right? Or is a new distinction when I automatically just fill my grocery store with, or fill my refrigerator with a ton of brightly colored fruits and vegetables and enjoy preparing and relishing in meals that taste delicious. And I don't even have cravings anymore. Maybe that's a new distinction. I don't know what it is, but what knowledge do you have to gain? Likely, if it's something that you're not living to date, there's some new knowledge or some new skills that are going to be required. Maybe the skill is the skill of persistence, right? The skill of trusting the process and staying committed. Maybe there's some new practice. I have to practice chewing my food and slowing down because I don't do that regularly. I kind of just go on autopilot when I eat, right? So what are some of these new things what does that look like for you? And I just want you to know, as soon as you start to move in the direction of something new, even just contemplating something new for your health, it will trigger the amygdala, the part of the brain that is the most, it's kind of like we call it like the animal center of the brain that wants to keep you safe. And the amygdala is doing its job because it wants you to stay exactly as you are right now. Because guess what? Right now you are alive. So check box, it is doing its job. It is keeping you safe. It is keeping you alive. As soon as you start to contemplate something different, that's unknown. That unknown feels unsafe. So every single possibility of fear, what can go wrong, why it won't work, why it's too expensive, why it'll be too hard, why it will take too much time, all of that is going to start popping into your head. Just know that and plan for it. I expect that. So when we plan for it, we don't let it stop us or derail us. We expect it, we anticipate it, right? And why does that happen? Again, because this is the axis of interconnectedness that I taught yesterday. The very first thing is our hypothalamus, our thoughts. What is happening at the top of the pyramid is what's happening in our hypothalamus. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our expectations. If we think this is too expensive, this is too hard, I don't have time, I've tried it before, that's going to then signal to the pituitary, the adrenals, put us into fight or flight stress response, which then affects our thyroid and slows down our metabolism and eventually affects the sex hormones. But you can see it again, we need to change the thoughts. And this is, we're going to go into this more in day 4 or day 3 tomorrow, reset your thinking, because it's such a critical part. So when you think about your health up level, remember your life is God's gift to you. You were built for that next health upgrade, that next health transformation. Even if your amygdala is freaking out, it will be freaking out. Just know that, expect it. But the changes won't hurt you, even if it feels emotionally uncomfortable. I like this little picture. It's like, this is my little bubble. This is my little comfort zone. This is exactly what your health is right now, exactly what your life is right now. It's known, it's familiar, it's what your amygdala wants to keep you in. But every single thing you want and you desire is where the magic is, where you see your life as more creative, more engaging, more energized, more passionate, more loving, more fun, more connected. That's going to be outside of your little comfort zone bubble. So it's going to have your amygdala freak out. Just know that when it does, check, I'm right on track. Sometimes I back down because of fear or overwhelm, criticism or isolation. Like if I'm doing something different than my husband and my daughters, they're kind of like, wait, you have to build in time to do this and to that, or make different meals or whatever it is. It's like that can be hard. Circumstance, like, right? We feel like we don't have time, we don't have money, we don't have support. These things are all just part of the amygdala showing us it's trying to hold you exactly where you are. But just remember, God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. So that means if you have a desire and a vision for something different for your health, you will be able to become qualified in the process of moving through that fear. So how are we going to create your new identity, your new alter ego? Remember, we want to immerse ourselves in the land of vitality. So we get to become familiar with that. We get to practice putting our thoughts more of the time in this version of our life. So when you visualize your life with this new health, what is happening specifically? Like, what are you doing? Or what are you no longer doing? What are you wearing? Is it the same thing you're wearing today, or do things look different? What's different? What's better? How does this feel? And I ask these questions and they're in your workbook. I literally encourage you to take at least 10 to 15 minutes this evening or the rest of this afternoon and write this down. You know, science shows that what we write down, when people write down their goals or their desires, they're 85% more likely to make them happen. A lot of times we just don't spend contemplating, considering, clarifying where we want to go. We spend so much of our time talking about where we don't want to be.
Finally.
Oops, we have here. Gonna mute. There we go. So really getting clear. And again, this is your activation power. I invite you to like think about putting on a new Wonder Woman set of like, and I do this all the time. It's like my alter ego, if you will. My nickname growing up when I was little was Mandy. So I call it Magic Mandy. It's kind of like almost like this magical sense of like life can have unexpected, surprises and blessings and gifts that are magical that can just happen. So like I literally do every single day. I write in my journal, what does Magic Mandy, who shows up with confidence and energy um and gratitude, do today? Like literally like putting that like almost like putting on a costume for the day. So when you think about this is how you activate the power to reach your goals is you think about the version of you that has the vitality that you desire. What does she value? What does she think about health, about her priorities, about where her attention goes? What are her beliefs about what's possible for her body? What are her habits, her skills? What type of support does she have? How does she dress? There's some interesting studies out of Northwestern University that show that it was actually two different groups of people were taking a cognitive intelligence test and random sampling of groups. The one group just took it, came in, whatever their clothes that they were wearing for the day, took the test. The other group, they had them put on doctor's coats and take the test. Crazy. And randomly, just simply by wearing that attire of a doctor's coat, there was an increase in their performance and aptitude test on a universally across the board on the test. And it's just interesting. The studies show that sometimes just literally how we show up and how we present ourselves influences our expectation, again, our thoughts, our beliefs, and what's possible. Even your feelings, like what does this version of you, how does she feel? When you think about practicing again, and I'm going back to, let me go back to the slide. When we think about the very, very beginning of how much of your time, energy, and attention is spent on your health, I lived in the land of depletion, always thinking about what was wrong with my body, always thinking about what I wasn't doing good enough, always thinking about why can't I figure this out, right? But we want to start to switch these ratios so that you can activate and live with this immersion of your thinking, your beliefs, your habits, your skills, your tools, your feelings, so that this is what changes your health. And when you get clear, I invite you to name your alter ego. Like I said, mine is Magic Mandy. Because when you start to really practice embodying this version of you, you will become this version of you. I mean, identity drives behavior. It will always supersede your thoughts or your feelings in the moment. If it's like, oh man, if you see yourself as somebody who is vibrantly healthy and energized and passionate and connected, you will make different choices. Even if in the moment you're like, oh, I don't really feel like making myself this dinner and cooking up some chicken and having some good healthy broccoli or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm just thinking about that, right? Because I don't have the energy. You're like, oh no, that's just what I do. That's who I am. Identity always drives behavior. So we want to clarify what is the identity of the version of you who lives with the vitality that you are seeking. And sometimes you can name it. Think of two words like Black Panther or Queen Amanda or Sasha Fierce or Amanda, whatever it is. It's kind of, I'm just kind of like to have some fun with it. But these are ways that you can really help support that go deeper beyond just the physiological components we talked before about all the hormone stuff that happens in the gut. But if we're not living with this type of identity, then likely you can make some changes for a short period of time, but you'll go right back into your current identity and the current patterns and the current choices and the current beliefs and the current thoughts, right? And this is what Shannon did. She became empowered, massively charged up her energy. She literally was like, I, for over 3 years, felt like a zombie every single day getting out of bed. I just didn't know what was going to shift this. She started sleeping better. She was nourishing her cells. She knew what her cells needed from her micronutrient test. We got her hormones into balance and improved her gut. She became clear, eliminated brain fog, was present, really felt more sense of like connection in her life. increased her business, led her team. So it really it affects how you show up in every single area of your life. So I know we covered a lot today. I just want to stop here for a second and say, is there any questions, anything that's standing up or coming out to you? Like what's one takeaway or something that maybe is landing in you have some new aha or new insight around this discussion, whether it be around the gut health and thinking about the hormone balance and or the identity piece of just really starting to create awareness of how your expectations and perceptions and thoughts about your health have been to date and what gets to shift going forward. Who would like to share? I love some feedback. Identity, Joanne. Yeah, is that something you've ever thought about before when it comes to your health? Yeah, you're nodding. I know you're muted. You can unmute if you want. Feel free to unmute.
Yeah, I think it's it's something that's evolving. So
Mhm.
some awareness is growing, but to actually come out and say, um, to take that identity of where you really want to be, um, and embrace that, it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I should do that.
Yeah. And that's a piece that I think we often, especially in the health and functional medicine world, we get so busy trying to fix the problem that so much energy and attention is put on the problem, which it's important to gain clarity, right? And like I said, I kind of like, I always think of it as like, we want to put the puzzle pieces out on the table. So we want to know like, what are the symptoms, what's going on hormonally and nutritionally. We want to know like kind of where we're starting from. But if we're not putting enough attention on really where we're headed, it's like trying to steer a ship from here to San Francisco or a car from here to San Francisco, but I have no maps. I'm not really looking at what's the end game if I'm just like drive west. Well, I don't know where I'm going to end up if I drive west. But if I have a very clear destination, it helps to really support the journey. So yeah, thank you, Joanne. Anyone else? Alexa or Stacy or Tanya? Let's see. I also like the positive visualization because I have more anxieties about the negatives. I definitely need more self-love. And yeah, great awareness, Alexa. So starting to think about this, right? Starting to put attention on purpose in the positives and what we do desire. And asking the question, I go back to invite you to use that chat GPT prompt to kind of uncover some of the limiting beliefs and the things that have gotten in our way and held us back, but then also asking the question of really sitting with each of those things and visualize that fast forward 12 months from now, maybe 22 years from now, at worst or at longest, I don't know. Give yourself a timeline and say, like, if I am living my best life a year from now, what does this look like? What am I doing? What am I not doing? Who am I spending time with? Where am I? Like clarifying the life, the lived experience, and then asking yourself, like, okay, what does that version of me think? What does that version of me feel? What does that version of me expect? This is so powerful. So yeah, I'm excited for you ladies to get to do this work. And we continue, like I said, you're gonna see how we build layers on. Um, Portia said, I must start thinking about me as a warrior, be in control of my life and my health. Yes. If that's helpful, embrace the Wonder Woman. To me, the Wonder Woman like visual was really supportive. It gave me the sense of like, yes, I can be empowered. I can collaborate with my body and start to move in that direction. Um, so thank you for sharing that. And tomorrow we're going to dive even deeper into, like I said, we talked about the root cause and really understanding how the nervous system is at the core. Then we looked at replenishing nutrients. Every single cell needs nutrients to work. Today was about digestion and how the hormones affect our gut and how to get that microbiome balanced and be able to detoxify excess hormones if needed, or to make sure that we're breaking down and absorbing effectively. Tomorrow goes even more into reset your thinking and how the mental loop is tied to our hormone balance as well. So I'm super excited to see you ladies then. Have a great rest of your afternoon and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Have a great day.